So I'm Darcy, and I'm an herbalist here in the Westchester area. A lot of people kind of want to know how I got into herbalism, so just a little quick um, synopsis on myself. I had experienced my own health issues in my 20s and early 30s, and had done everything, gone to see a lot of holistic doctors, MDs, just done so much. And some people helped me, some people made me worse, but mostly I just kind of still struggled. Then when I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child, I was like, I need to do something because my digestion was really bad. I had just had a ton of symptoms. And so I went to see an herbalist. And in just a few days, actually, I felt a difference. It was pretty amazing. And so I decided to learn more about herbs and become a certified herbalist. And here I am today, helping people with herbs. So today we're going to talk about menopause. And it's something that in our culture, a lot of people dread it. It's a time of life that we think of a lot of time as decline or a change that brings symptoms that we don't like, the dreaded hot flashes and a lot of different things. But and the other people think of it as a time of our wisdom years when we can share what we've accumulated, the knowledge, the wisdom that we've accumulated with the younger generations, when we can speak our truth more clearly, and we just don't really care as much about what people think, which is quite nice. And a time to maybe nurture ourselves more. Our kids are going off to school, and so it can be a time of a lot of good things too. It's interesting that in Native American medicine, their herbal way of dealing with their health, they didn't actually have any herbs for menopause. And the reason is because indigenous people really didn't have a lot of menopause symptoms.
Because they died too early?
No,
Oh.
Actually, they lived a longer life, but
They wrote in herbs. That's
well, they lived a different life that we live. It wasn't a sedentary life. They were very active. They didn't eat a lot of refined foods that we eat today, and they did use herbs as just a part of their way of life involved using herbs, eating them, and a different kind of way of taking care of themselves. So it's interesting. They say that in ancient China there wasn't a word for menopause because they didn't have those symptoms. And indigenous people really didn't have the symptoms. When they lived the life of an indigenous person or tribe, they didn't have the symptoms of menopause that we experience today. So it's interesting how our lifestyle has a really big effect on how we enter menopause and how it affects us. Also, what I was gonna, yeah. So, anyways, so if we enter menopause in a depleted state where we're tired, worn out, not getting enough sleep, maybe we haven't led the healthiest lifestyle, it might be harder for us. And it's really a call to, okay, this is my time of life where I can do more for myself and really start taking care of myself so my later years can be filled with more activity and the things we want to do when we're maybe not taking care of our kids, or maybe we have things we have to do, like take care of our parents. So we want enough energy to do that and pursue our interests and go through it with greater ease. So it's an easy transition. So one of the really important things that we need to do is really change the way we eat and our lifestyle. And so I always say that's going to be the most important thing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too, because I don't like to use herbs symptomatically so much. Like, that's our Western module, right? We treat symptoms, but we want to look at our body as a whole and what can we do to build it up. So what is menopause? Menopause is when our period stops for 12 months, and we've gotten through that. And It usually occurs about age 51, give or take a few years. We also have perimenopause, which is the years leading up to menopause and around and even afterwards too. At this time, our periods are fluctuating, our hormones are fluctuating, our estrogen, our progesterone are fluctuating, and it usually takes about 4 to 7 years to get through this. It's a time when our endocrine system is actually just really rewiring how it works. So our body has to learn how to deal with less estrogen, but also how to rewire where the estrogen's being made. So most estrogen is produced in the ovaries. It's called estradiol, and it's a really strong estrogen. There's 3 kinds of estrogens, but estradiol is a really strong estrogen, and that's the estrogen that the most estrogen we have during, from puberty until menopause is this estradiol, this strong estrogen. It's made mostly in our ovaries, but that stops when we stop ovulating. And so our body has to start making estrogen in another way. So the estrogen that it starts making that's going to be more abundant than estradiol at that point is estrone. And it's a weaker estrogen, but it's produced in the adrenals and fat tissues. So we're going to see less estrogen produced by our ovaries. If we still have our ovaries, it'll produce a little bit of estradiol. If we've had our ovaries removed, then we're not going to have that benefit at all. So we're going to have this estrogen produced in our adrenal glands and fatty tissues. And so cholesterol is the source of all hormones in our body. So we might see our cholesterol go up at this time because remember, our body's trying to rewire how it does everything. So our cholesterol might go up. Even on our blood work, it might show that our cholesterol is going up. But we need that cholesterol to make this estrone that we need, and to make other hormones too. I mean, cholesterol makes all hormones, so we need that. It's interesting because our cholesterol might go up on our blood work during this time as our body's trying to re-regulate. And it is a time when doctors see that. A lot of times they might think, oh, their cholesterol is really high. We need to go on statins. A lot of women are put on statins at this time. But we have to remember our body's just trying to do what it needs to do to make this estrogen. So we want to let that process happen and not be so set on trying to take these symptomatic things and regulate them. Another thing that happens is our thyroid will start to try to adjust with all these hormone changes, and we need to let that happen too. I mean, sometimes we might need to be on thyroid meds, but it may go up and down and just fluctuate. It's a time of fluctuations. It's not a linear process where your estrogen just slowly declines. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up again, down again. It's very sporadic, and we have to realize that. And with some women, their estrogen might go really high during perimenopause. Some women get really heavy bleeding during perimenopause. They get fibroids, so they'll have a hysterectomy because those fibroids are, of course, really high estrogen, and that can be because of lifestyle changes too, or lifestyle, the way they eat, things like that. It's interesting, 75 to 90% of women have symptoms during menopause. So that's a very few that don't. And it's interesting too, in the United States, our biggest symptom is hot flashes. If you go to the Eastern countries, China, those countries, theirs is musculoskeletal issues, arthritis. In India, it's declining eyesight. So it's interesting how where we live, it changes. So we want to really support ourselves, first of all, by lifestyle changes. So the first thing I like to talk to people is about their diet, because it's really critical. We live in a place where people eat a lot of refined foods. We're not indigenous people here anymore who are eating berries and lean meats and vegetables and things like that. So we really want to make sure we're getting a lot, mostly whole foods. So we want to do a lot of vegetables, a lot of whole grains if we can handle them. We want to do a lot of fruits, things like that. There's isoflavone foods. Have you heard of how they talk about phytoestrogens? Have you guys heard? Yeah, so a lot of people talk about estrogens or plant estrogens. It's really a misused term. There are plants that contain a lot of what we call SERMs, or selective estrogen receptor modulators. So they're going to help our body to uptake more estrogen and produce more estrogen.
Is flaxseed one of them? Flaxseed?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, flax seeds are an omega, and yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be foods like beans, legumes, all beans and legumes, carob, soy. Although we do have to be careful about soy. First of all, it's GMO'd, most of it, so you need to make sure you don't get GMO'd. If thyroid is an issue, it can bring down the thyroid. So you have to be careful. Fermented soy is the best way to go, fermented and organic. Red clover is an herb that it has these SERMs in it. There's several. Hops does too. Kudzu is another herb that has it. Red clover is a really nice tea, actually. It is really tasty. So it's a nice tea. If you were estrogen dominant, I wouldn't give somebody red clover. So dietary fiber is the number one deficiency that we have, nutrient deficiency. So we want to really make sure we're getting a lot of fiber, and we're going to get that in whole foods. The fiber actually it's food for microflora in our gut. That microflora actually will help these SERMs to deal with this estrogen and help us to produce more. So it's really important. We want to make sure we're getting enough good fats. So omegas, you've probably heard of those. So flax has omegas, but the problem is omega-3s need to be converted to the usable form, DHA and EPA, and our body has a really hard time doing that. So we want to take DHA and EPA. So eat a lot of fish, half a pound a week even, if you can. Or we want to take fish oils. So DHA and EPA only come from something that is alive. So you can get it from krill or seafood. So it's really important to get those in because that's going to really help. Fats. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I thought fish oils were sort of determined to not be what they said beneficial. They were a big craze for a while, and then they came out with a study saying, yeah, never mind that.
Yeah, no. I mean, you want to get good quality, but no, they're really important. Yeah, those omegas, or the DHA and EPA are really important. We should have a 1:1 to 2:1 ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. Omega-6s are like plant-based fats that we get, and Americans are like 20:1, 10:1. It's really important. Other fats that are good would be things like olive oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, walnut oil, good quality walnut oil that's not refined, avocado oil, avocados, nuts. Those are all going to be really good fats. Fats that we don't want to do would be vegetable fats. So the ones here are okay, but vegetable fats like soy and canola and safflower and sunflower that are refined. They're refined and they're heated and they can't take high heat, so they become rancid and they create inflammation in our body. So we really want to avoid those. They're in almost everything that's packaged. So we really have to be careful about the packaged things. It's really important. The other thing that's really important when talking about lifestyle is menopause is diet, or not diet, but exercise, because exercise will increase our hormones better than anything else. It's really, really one of the number one things that will help increase our hormones. So whether we're male or female, it's just really good for that. So we want to make sure we're doing that. And yeah, sometimes that's a hard thing. That's probably my hardest thing is exercise. So it's really, really important. And the sleep is really important too, because when we sleep through the night and we're getting 8 hours of sleep, our body produces DHEA. DHEA is actually the building block of all hormones. They're all made from cholesterol, but DHEA then goes down to make all the androgens. So sleep is really important. So if we're not sleeping through the night and not getting good sleep, we need to investigate why. And there could be a lot of different reasons for that. Could be sleep apnea. It could be, there's some people that their blood sugar drops at night, so cortisol goes up and wakes them up, stress, just a lot of different reasons. But that's something I really go into with clients because it's really
That's the
important.
single reason I'm here.
Sleep.
Mhm.
It's really important.
Since age 42, I'm now 60.
Really.
I have a 3:07 wake up call every night.
So,
Not every night, but 4 out of 7 nights. And I'm up for an hour and a half to 3 hours sitting there.
Are you hot?
Yeah, I'm hot.
Okay.
I think it's a combination of the hot flash. I have one hot flash. That's the only time I have it. I don't have it any other time of the day. Just at 3:07. And then I have this like cortisol. Like I'm literally wide awake. And then I can't go back to sleep right away. And I try I read. I get up. I've had breakfast in the middle of the night. I've had the whole glass of milk. I was on Lunesta and all of these sleeping things for a while. I did the the natural ones. I've done melatonin. I've done. I had a sleep study.
You don't have sleep apnea.
Nope.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, 3 o'clock, 1 to 3 in Chinese medicine is the liver time.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be that. The liver does produce heat that comes up, so it rises. There's a lot of reasons, but that could be, it could be the whole hot flashes. It also could be the cortisol is rising. It could be a blood sugar issue. That's actually really quite common with people.
So what do? Just eat? I mean, get up and eat in the morning?
No.
Once I was told that instead of milk, like if you're kind of hungry before bed, eat a piece of chicken.
Sometimes.
Because that protein, chicken breast,
I've tried
maybe.
a handful of almonds before I go to bed, which is also protein.
That's a protein. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It can be that. Eating protein before bed does help. Sometimes fat. But why is the blood sugar? If that's the case, we want to find out why the blood sugar is down. So it could be several things. It's hard to know without a complete intake. But yeah, you can. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people with sleep issues, and you usually get to the root of them. But yeah, it's critical. Sleep is so critical. I say it's like breathing. We need sleep
I don't have
breathing.
any issue with the diet or the exercise.
And you fall asleep easily.
I could fall asleep anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter. Daylight, nighttime. I'm asleep in like 3 minutes when I put my head down at night, and I go to sleep at like 11:15. It's not like I'm going to sleep really early.
Right.
It's bizarre.
It's very common.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, nobody I've been to, I can't even tell you how many doctors are like, I don't know. That's literally how they answer them, like, thank you.
No, it's really common. I see it a lot. People fall asleep easily and then they wake up at a certain time. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thyroid, low thyroid.
I've already had that checked. Not an issue.
But it may be. I mean, it depends on the ranges for some labs are a lot wider than what the Endocrine Society has suggested. So I look at it, we need to look at it with a tighter range to see what's going on. Also, it's not just what your TSH is, but we need to look at free T3, free T4. We need to look where if you're converting your thyroid hormones correctly. So, and sometimes it could be that we need to do some nervings to help with sleep, so that you sleep.
Nervings?
Nervings. So they're herbs that help with the nervous system.
Oh.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's
Okay.
a lot of, but it is common, a lot more common than people think, to wake up at, fall asleep easily. I have a lot of clients that have done that. So,
Okay.
yeah. But it's important because we need that sleep to help us to make DHEA. And DHEA also helps with collagen production, hormone production, so it's really important. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things that happen during menopause, perimenopause, and after menopause, so that we can see how we can help our body during this time. First one is hot flashes, because it's just kind of, I don't know, when everybody thinks of menopause, I think they always think of hot flashes or night sweats. So I always like to look at diet first. Let's say we've done a diet, exercise, all these lifestyle changes, and they're still really bad. And I've had people come in, and I mean, they're just, you see the hot flash coming on as they're sitting in the chair, and they're swabbing their face, and they're melting, and they're miserable. So at that point, we need to do something. And especially if it's interrupting sleep, we can't keep hot flashing in the middle of the night and losing sleep, because that's not healthy. So things that can contribute to hot flashes is caffeine. It's huge. So even chocolate, it can make a huge difference for people who are having those issues. Alcohol can make a huge difference. Sugar, and then hot and spicy foods too. So in herbalism, we look at the different energetics of herbs and foods. So if we have more of a hot system or an overactive system, then hot foods, hot herbs are going to contribute to that. That's not what we would want to do. Also vitamin C, bioflavonoids, which are in foods that are high in vitamin C, those are going to help with it. Vitamin E is really important too. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin E. When we get vitamin E, we want not just one kind, because vitamin E is like a family of nutrients. We want mixed tocopherols and tocotrienols. So those are some things we want to look at dietary-wise and nutrient-wise. But then there's some really great herbs that really, they really do work for hot flashes. I've had really good success. And there's something that the longer we take them, the better it gets. But usually, within a week, people notice a difference in their hot flashes when I've given them. I call my formula Cool Woman. So the premier herb for the hot flashes and helping the body to regulate this hormone process is chaste tree. And it's something that we don't just use for menopause, but if people have a hard time getting their menstrual cycle regulated, maybe after they've taken birth control pills. Some women, they don't have a period for years. I've had some clients that, years and years, no period, because they've tricked their body into thinking they're having a period when they don't. So they've had a fake period all those years. So it really works good for that. PMS, infertility, fibroids, a lot of different things like that it's used for. But it's really good for regulating, helping the pituitary regulate that follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone. And if we're doing fine with the menopausal years, we don't necessarily have to take it. But if somebody's having a real big problem, then and it's interrupting their life or their sleep, then we need to do something about it. Chasing trees, great. Did you have a question?
Not question, but I'm on a birth control pill for the PMS symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know, I have other symptoms, because I know that birth control pills are not very good also in the long run.
Yeah.
But if I don't take them, then I have all the premenstrual symptoms. Like it used to be maybe a week in advance. Now, like I'm just good for 1 week, and the remaining 2 weeks during my cycle, I was having a lot of symptoms. So I was put in birth control pill. So I'm still having periods, but very short, and like it's helping ease the symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a symptom. It's a symptom remover.
Yeah.
But the real cause of PMS symptoms is not because you need a birth control pill. So it's what you want to do. Do you want to manipulate your body's production of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, or do you want to get to the root and find out why you have PMS symptoms? There's a lot of different reasons for that, and in herbalism we work at bringing balance to the body, using the herbs to help to make it so the cause of the symptoms go away. So long-term birth control pills, there have been studies done, and there's some issues with those, so it's something to consider. Sometimes it's dietary changes. We need to make dietary changes even, and it can be huge.
Thank you.
Black cohosh, we usually think of that as a female herb. It's really not. It's really not where it shines. But black cohosh does work really well with chaste tree. They kind of synergize well together. Black cohosh is actually an herb that we use more for spasms, and it's really good for when somebody has like a depression, like there's a black cloud always hanging over them, following them. That's kind of what black cohosh is used for.
I remember using that early on, and my perimenopause did nothing.
Yeah, because it's not an herb for menopause. It
But
does
they market
help
it that way.
Yeah, it's not. It is. It can be good for menopausal depression, but that's not what we use it for. I would use it for like anything that's like a spasming, or not just spasm, but we kind of like fluctuating symptoms or certain kinds of depression. Black cohosh is an herb that we learn about herbs by what they look like, how they grow, their personality. So it has these black tangled roots that grow underground, and then it comes up tall and has these beautiful spikes or fluffy fronds up at the top. So it's taking this black, dark thing and bringing it up to the light, becoming something beautiful. So that's kind of how we use it for that kind of depression, and it's good for some whiplash issues and kind of that kind of a scenario. But it is used in conjunction with chaste tree, but alone you're not going to get probably any relief of menopausal symptoms with it or hot flashes. Dongui is another herb that not as much for hot flashes, but it's really good for when at menopause with that vaginal dryness. It can help with that. It helps to rebuild that vaginal tissue, because as we go through menopause, it starts to become less elastic. It loses some of it, becomes more friable. It helps to rebuild that tissue, and it helps to moisten it. Another herb that is really good for that vaginal dryness and that dryness in general. So if we have too dry of a state, we want to do moistening herbs that are really moistening. So shatavari is another really great herb as we go into these years. It's an Ayurvedic herb. It's really, really moistening. We think of it for dried out old women. That's kind of what a lot of herbalists. But that's not just what it's for. It's just for moistening the body, whether you're young or old.
So it's good for hair and like skin also, dryness, or overall?
It could be, but if we have dry hair, I'd probably be looking at something else. I mean, it's probably not the cause of the dry hair. That could be more, some nutrient deficiencies, thyroid issues, things like that. But it does help moisten. It's it may have some adaptogenic effects, which means that it helps balance the nervous system in the body hormonally with that pituitary and thyroid and your hypothalamus, which are the glands in the brain that tell the rest of the glandular system what to do. But yeah, it's really good for vaginal dryness as well. Let's see. One of the best herbs for night sweats and heat, too much heat and, hot flashes is sage. Just right in our garden. Sage is really good for that. Sometimes I'll use it in a tea. I'll make a formula. I brought my little cool woman formula. Let me see it. Let's see, which one is it? This is the one. So in this one I put chaste tree, black cohosh to help as a synergist. Motherwort. Motherwort is just a great herb for menopause. It's a great herb anyway. It's a nervine. It helps with the nervous system when we get nervous, like our heart starts racing. It's more of a cardio herb. It helps when we just get nervous and anxious because we just feel like, and we almost have like a reaction to the stimulus that makes us nervous that's just too much. It's just more than what the cause is really eliciting. But motherwort's great. Hops, that's a really good herb for pulling the body down. And sage.
So you should have a beer at night?
Yeah. Well, that might be too much alcohol. That might really cause hot flashes. The sage, and then I put shatavari in it. So,
what is it? Shatavari?
Shatavari. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you take these herbs?
This one, you can put a couple squirts in your mouth.
Oh, okay.
And
so is it in an oil or what do you?
It's an alcohol tincture, but it's a little alcohol. It's not like drinking a glass of wine. Okay. So it's not going to affect you. Or you can put it in water and just drink it. Yeah. So, yeah. It works good. That's a good formula. So a lot of times at menopause, we get more anxiety and like we talked about the insomnia. So chaste tree again is a nice one. We talked about motherwort. Skullcap so these are all nervines. So we have a class of herbs called nervines, and they all help our nervous system to calm down and regulate. And we want to do the lifestyle changes first, of course. Is anything bothering us that we need to take care of that way, in that manner? We want to look at our diet, all those things, nutrient deficiencies, but nervines are really wonderful. So motherwort's really nice nervine. It helps with people who maybe just fly off the handle.
Oh, I need to get some of this for my daughter.
They're just like
Skullcap. I'm writing this one down.
Yeah, they just fly off the handle. They're so angry and they can't control it, and then they're fine. And so that's skullcap. And the beauty of
can I sneak it in somehow?
It doesn't taste good, but yeah.
So when she comes over for dinner, I could just kind of put it in the
food, maybe.
Food. I'm totally doing this.
And the beauty of using herbs for you as an individual is we can make a formula that's so specific. So maybe somebody wants some motherwort, but maybe they also need skullcap, because anxiety or depression or any emotion like that, it's not the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. People feel it in different ways. So we pick the herb and herbs that fit just specifically for that person so they can get all the right components. Pask is one that we use in very small amounts. If you're a practitioner, you can get it. If you're not, you can't. But it's for like panic disorders, really extreme anxiety. And we only use a very tiny, tiny amount in it. I love rose. Rose is like, it's for grief. Just maybe a little sadness that's, I don't know, almost like a sadness from the past is how I think of it. And it's just so gentle and so it's just gentle. I don't know how to explain it, but I love rose. just a little bit of rose at the end of the formula to just gently help us along. Yeah. Milky oat, that's another one that one very well-known herbalist here in the United States calls it the queen of all nervines. He loves it. Milky oat is also about if somebody feels a loss when they're sad or anxious. Could be a loss of somebody dear to them. It could be loss of a career. It could be loss of something that we, felt like we lost going through menopause and this change of life. It's a really nice one that long-term we see more effects. And it's just the milk, it's just the immature, unripened, I should say, part of the oats that's picked when they're green. Damiana is another herb that we can use as a nervine. It does enhance libido. It's a very warming one. So you might use just that in small amounts. It's a nice tea, actually. It's a nice tasting tea. It also lowers your blood sugar a little bit. Red ginseng, that's a stronger herb that we would just use in small amounts. So it's another adaptogen. And remember, adaptogens help us to adapt to stress. So nervines, we have nervines which just help us to feel calmer. We have nerve sedatives which can make us sleepy maybe. And then adaptogens, they just tell you it's okay. You don't need to push out the cortisol. We're good, everything's calm. And they produce this long-term effect of this calmness that helps a lot of people sleep who have sleep issues, because it's a very sustained building kind of calmness. It's a very grounded kind of energy, adaptogens, which I really like. When we're tired, we don't usually feel grounded. But
What's this one called again?
It's red ginseng, but you would only use small amounts. So I use a lot of different adaptogens. That's one, but there's a lot of adaptogens that you can use that are really grounding, that you can take long term. Ashwagandha is another one we'll talk about a little bit. It's really good, really good. Probably one of my favorites.
What was it?
Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha.
It's another Indian herb. Yeah. Passiflora is when we can't turn our brain off. It's kind of for those who can't fall asleep and their brain's just going.
See, that's what happens when I wake up.
Right.
I have no problem on the front end of that, but then I wake up and it's like I can't.
Yeah, but
I
I
get into
don't.
this feedback loop.
But I don't think it doesn't sound like your thoughts are waking you up.
No.
Yeah, it's something.
It's just once I'm awake, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I start thinking about
Yeah.
because there's nothing else to do.
Do you ever feel like you get blood sugar drops during the day? Or if you don't eat?
Not anymore. Once I changed my diet, yes, before for sure. And I was gestationally diabetic in my second pregnancy, and I have diabetes running through every place.
Yeah.
But once I changed my diet and dropped the sugar primarily, although I'm still at moments, I don't have that issue.
So Passiflora, hops, and motherwort, that's a nice combination for that anxiety, insomnia. And then we have brain fog. Anybody get brain fog here? I do. So there's a lot of different reasons we can have brain fog, but that brain fog that's really menopausal that a lot of women think about, we can use some herbs for that. Brain fog can be from a lot of different things, so we really have to rule out other things. So it could be from a blood deficiency.
Not sleeping.
It can be from not sleep. See, sleeping is like
Sleep
breathing.
deprivation.
I tell you, that's why my brain fog is happening. It's like
I say next to breathing, sleep is next important. It is, because if we don't get sleep, nothing else works. I mean, our digestion doesn't work, our nervous system doesn't work, we're producing more cortisol. I mean, nothing can work. We're in fight or flight, and then the insomnia gets worse. So yeah, it's second to breathing, I think. So we want to look at the other causes, but some things that can help with brain fog is hawthorn berry. It's a very cooling herb and really good for brain fog. We want herbs that bring blood to the brain. So gotu kola really helps to bring blood to the brain. holy basil, it's another adaptogen that's really nice. It just brings this calm that's grounding and long term. It's not sedating at all. Adaptogens aren't. They just a very grounded, calm. It does lower blood sugar a little bit. So I say if people feel like their blood sugar is a little low, we want to avoid herbs that lower the blood sugar. Rosemary is also a really great herb for remembering. There's a saying in herbalism, rosemary for remembrance, because it really does bring oxygen to your brain and help you to think better and remember. Sage, so sage is really good for hot flashes. It's also really good for brain fog, because it's bringing that blood to the brain again. Ginkgo, bacopa, those are a couple more. Another thing we want to think about as we go into menopause or our past menopause is we want to think of our bones and our skeletal system, because osteoporosis does start to affect a lot of women. So we need a diet high in minerals. We usually think of calcium, right? Calcium, we're always told take calcium, take your calcium supplement. You really need to do that. But calcium can be dangerous to take. I tell my clients don't take calcium, because calcium is really hard to absorb. So, and it's not just about calcium, it's about all the other nutrients that we need to absorb the calcium. So we want to, first of all, be able to absorb the calcium. We need hydrochloric acid in our stomach in order to absorb minerals that are heavy, like calcium, magnesium, zinc, copper, all of those. We need a lot of hydrochloric acid. As we age, our hydrochloric acid continues to decline. So I work with people a lot on their gut. It's really important, because if our gut's not working, then it's going to make a big difference in our health, overall health. It affects everything. So, yeah, calcium. If we're taking calcium and we can't absorb it, then our body's got to do something with it, right? If it can't get into the cells. So it'll go to our arteries and kidney stones. It has to go someplace. So those are some of the things that happen.
So how do you know if you're not absorbing it?
Don't take it. Don't take it. It's really hard to absorb. I think people, I just don't recommend taking calcium at all.
How about magnesium?
Most people are low in magnesium. Supplementing with magnesium is fine, but
There's a billion kinds of magnesium out there. Is
there
there?
are a billion kinds. I like herbs. I like using herbs for calcium. So we want to we want to get calcium in, but we want to also get the nutrients that are going to help absorb it. So I make a tea. I did bring some. It's a little high in the pepper. I kind of guessed on it, but if you guys want to try it, you can try it when we're done. But I make a tea that is really good for building minerals in our body and bones. So it's actually, before I go into that, just a couple things we need. So we need vitamin D and K2 to help. K2 drives the calcium into the bones. We need vitamin D to help us absorb it, to keep our bones strong. Magnesium, potassium, boron, and hydrochloric acid. Those are things we need to utilize the calcium. So in the tea that I make for our bones is, and just to get minerals in, it's just an easy way to do it. I use stinging nettles. I don't know if have you guys ever been out and about? Allie knows.
Yep.
I went on a walk today and there were so many stinging nettles. I'm gonna go back and put my gloves on and cut them and make a soup with it. But they're so high in nutrients. Stinging nettles are really, really high in minerals.
So it can be fun because my son had constipation problem, and I was searching and I found that stinging needles is good for that also, like tea or like not
That's a
that the
positive.
digestive system. It is very good for that. So it can be found everywhere in the
Yeah.
woods and
Yeah, I don't know if I would use that for constipation though. Have you tried it?
for no, not because
Because
I
it's
don't
also
even know
it's
where I
also a
can.
potassium sparing diuretic and
Okay.
kind of have a drying effect. So when we're
Okay.
constipated, we're dry. So that's about bringing balance. So I would use more herbs that are moistening
Okay. Yeah.
to help with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, magnesium is always nice too.
Mhm.
So stinging nettles, oat straw is good, and horsetail. So silica helps us to the osteoblasts to mature in our bone. So horsetail is so high in silica. It's like I think I don't know anything that has more silica than horsetail. It's pretty incredible. Um, I don't really like the taste of stinging nettles. It's not a bad taste. It's a very rich, kind of meaty taste. I mean, not meaty like we think, but in the herbal world, because it's got so many minerals in it. So I add just a little bit of mint to mine because I like it. And then just a little black pepper. So when we make herbal formulas, we want something that's a synergist that kind of kicks things in to work better. And black pepper will do that for that formula. We just add a little bit. The one I did, I just started putting some black pepper in my herbs. I didn't measure, so it was a little black pepperish today.
Mhm.
But black pepper will enhance the absorption of the tea by 30%. That's pretty huge. So when you take something in an herbal form like this, you're gonna have a lot easier time absorbing the nutrients. So that's why I like to do that. I would also take extra vitamin D with K2. I use a liquid that's emulsified so it's easier to absorb. When you take vitamin D, you want to take it with fatty meals with lots of fat because it's fat soluble vitamin. You can also add alfalfa to the tea. Alfalfa is really rich in minerals too. Its roots go down, I think they even say like 20 feet in the ground. I can't even imagine, but it pulls out minerals that are deep in the earth. So alfalfa is a nice combination, and dandelion has vitamin K in it, so a little bit of dandelion too. But I make this tea and just kind of always keep it for people who want to use that. So yeah, it's a good way to keep those bones healthy and strong. About 2 cups a day, and you can do it like in the summer. You can put some lemon in it and put it on ice, and it's good. It's a good tea. It's not yeah, with a little mint. Some people like without the mint. I need the mint in it. And then another thing that happens is like women in their 60s, they found that they start to have more cardiovascular issues. Estrogen is very cardioprotective. So after that estrogen goes down, that's when heart disease starts to affect women more. Some herbs that are really good for the heart is, one of them is hawthorn. Hawthorn's amazing cardiotonic. I have a little story I like to tell about my sister-in-law. So my sister-in-law started having, her heart was just racing, and she tried medicine. It wasn't getting controlled, so they were going to do a ablation on her heart. It's a medical procedure where they go in and do that to try to get it so the heart will stop racing. I think they have to get it. They have to get it up to a certain heart rate and then do the procedure. So, anyways, before she went in for the surgery, my brother called me and said, "Is there anything you can do to help Karen? She doesn't really want to do like holistic stuff. She doesn't believe it, but I really don't want her to have this procedure." I said, "Yeah." So I put her on. I had her take some hawthorn, and I think I had it in a little motherwort, and we had like a couple weeks. It was like 2 or 3 weeks is all she had. I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna help, but you can do it. So she did it, but she still went in for her procedure because the doctors said she needed it, but they couldn't do the procedure. So they came out, they're like, "We do not know what happened here, but we could not even get your heart to race. I had it up," and I don't know how they do it, but he's like, I couldn't get it to go up high enough. He's like, "It's the weirdest thing. I don't even understand it." And so she went out, and they're thinking about it. They're like, "Do you think it could be the herbs?" But hawthorn is so cardioprotective. It is really a restorative herb for the heart. Motherwort, of course, it's really good for a racing heart. Okay. Linden is another really good herb for the heart. And then another couple things just to talk about is the thyroid. So our thyroid has to adjust to this whole transition of life too. So we want to think about that. Sometimes it might be necessary to go on thyroid meds, but if not, there's a lot of herbs that can help. Sometimes we might be low in iodine, and we usually don't need a lot of iodine. We don't want to take high doses, but even a small amount can help. So eating seaweeds, black walnut is the only herb that I know of. It's only the only land source of iodine I know. It's really great. I love black walnut. It has a lot of other benefits too, but that's really good for the thyroid. Ashwagandha is thyroid stimulating. It also helps us. So we have T4 and T3. The thyroid makes mostly T4. It needs to be converted to T3, which is the usable form. Some people have a hard time making that conversion. So it might not be that the thyroid's actually a problem, but they just can't convert that T4 to T3 so that it can be usable. Ashwagandha is really amazing at helping to make that T4 to T3 conversion. We can take it as a tincture. We can take it, I have some people take it by the spoonful, mix it with some maybe milk or coconut milk, and put some nice herbs in it, and eat it that way. Google lipid, it helps with conversion of T4 to T3 as well. Bacopa also stimulates thyroid function. And then blue flag is a very strong herb. It's also one that just practitioners would use. And we just use a tiny little bit, and it's very thyroid stimulating. So we want to look at what's going on with the thyroid. But if that's an issue, we want to take a look at that, because that's going to cause a lot of different symptoms. Then some other things we could do if night sweats were really horrible and just the sage and the cool woman formula doesn't work. White sage, Chinese peony, astragalus is really good for it. So there's several different herbs. But yeah, so those are just some of the different herbal things we can do and nutritional things we can do for menopause and the years after that. So.